Hi, my name is Lee Weiss. I'm the Director of Pregraduate Programs here at Kaplan, which means I'm responsible for our GRE students and making sure that we have an excellent product for you guys. And I'm very pleased to be here with you today to talk about the do's and don'ts of graduate school admissions, which is a topic I've had the chance to talk with students with around the U.S., around the world. It's something that I educate college programs, and helping their students get into graduate school. And I'm also very active with the graduate school community and talking with admissions officers about what it takes to get students into graduate school so we can help you achieve your goals. So we'll start off with a nice view of Mount Everest here. So we're out in Nepal. And here's a quote from Sir Edmund Hillary, who was one of the first people to climb to the peak of Mount Everest. And the quote is, "It's not the mountain that we conquer, but ourselves." And think about this in the context of applying to graduate school. So when you're applying to graduate school, you are looking to do something that is going to set you up for the rest of your life. It is something that's going to make you focus, it's going to make you deeper, it's going to make you more knowledgeable. But to do so, there are a bunch of tasks that you need to make sure that are aligned and that you are setting yourself up for success. And it's the same sort of thing. You're scaling a very high mountain, a personal mountain that you're going to have to conquer in order to be successful in the future. So first of all, let's talk about the value of investing in an advanced degree. And this is from the New York Times Education Life section from summer of 2011. And obviously the unemployment rate is very high right now. It's come down a bit since last summer, but it's still very, very high, and especially high for 20-somethings and for young professionals and professionals. That said, the more education that you have, the better you're going to have a chance to succeed. And as you can see here, just by getting a bachelor's degree, the unemployment rate is under 5% there. And then as you get into the master's, the professional degree, the PhD, doctoral categories, the unemployment rate drops as low as 2%, lower than 2% for professional degrees. And aligned with that is more earning potential. So as you go from a bachelor to an advanced degree, you're talking about $12,000 to $20,000 plus per year in incremental earnings, which is $250,000 plus over the course of a decade, and can be $1 million plus over the course of a career. So here's a great equation to remember when you're thinking about the investment that you're making in an advanced degree. An advanced degree equals lower unemployment plus higher earnings, and that's really where the investment potential comes from and the long-term return on investment. And included in that is the satisfaction, hopefully, of getting a graduate degree in a field that will give you lifelong satisfaction and pleasure and make you want to get out of bed in the morning and do work that you find satisfying. So why do we care about the GRE in this process? And obviously the GRE is our core competency. We as a company think about it all the time. I spend probably 60 hours a week thinking about some aspect of the GRE or getting students into graduate school. So every year we do a survey of the top admissions programs according to U.S. News and World Reports, and we reach out to the top 50 programs in education, engineering, public administration, and psychology, which is a nice cross-section of graduate programs. And we ask them, how important are the following factors in graduate school admissions? And in our most recent survey, the most important factor for getting into graduate school is GRE score. 31% of these admissions officers said that the GRE score is the most important factor for getting into graduate school. And that doesn't mean you can neglect any of these other factors. They're all very important, and graduate school applications are viewed holistically. So obviously your GPA, your work experience and research experience, your recommendations, your letters of recommendation, your personal statements, all of that is very, very important in the process, but you will neglect GRE score at your own hazard. What I've also heard speaking with a lot of admissions officers directly is that the GRE is a filtering mechanism. So if there are 1,000 applicants to a program, before they even start looking closely at your application, there's a good chance that 50 or 75% of applications may be put aside because they don't meet a certain GRE threshold. It's a great way for graduate programs which are short-staffed, notoriously short-staffed, under budget, to find great candidates. In order to look closely at a small set of applications is a lot easier than to try to do so with a large set of applications, and many applications are thrown to the wayside if GRE scores are low. The other thing that's important about GRE scores is that it's really an important piece of not just getting into programs, but getting financing for programs. So we asked these same admissions officers, how important is the GRE in financing? And 2/3 of them said it was somewhat important or very important in deciding who gets grants, scholarships, teaching assistantships, and fellowships. So that's why the GRE should be so important to you. And when you look at average GRE scores at top graduate programs, so since the test changed and new scores became released in November 2011, schools are just getting comfortable with these new scores, and there isn't a lot of data released, but we can use conversion tables to convert old GRE scores to new GRE scores. And as you can see, it's still very competitive to get into top programs. That has not changed at all. So, if you look at my alma mater, MIT, you're looking at a 165 plus on the new test on the quantitative side, which is, very high 90th percentile plus score, and that's just to be a competitive candidate, and same at other top programs like Stanford and University of California. Many programs are looking at both their quantitative and verbal score, and even engineering programs will use verbal scores as a differentiator, although you really have to hit a certain threshold on the quant side to be considered a strong candidate there. Education is another great example. If you're looking at master's or PhD programs in education, whether you're looking at the Peabody program at Vanderbilt, which is a top program, or Columbia or Harvard, or even down the list if you're looking at a regional school or a school close to you, GRE is going to be a way to differentiate yourself from other applicants. It's going to be a way to get yourself scholarships, and you can see that these scores are very competitive, so you need to put in your time to make sure that you differentiate yourself from the competition. All right, so starting with tip 1 here. So when you're talking about the do's and don'ts of graduate school, number 1 is to understand the factors. So you've got your qualitative factors, things that can't be measured with numbers, and you've got your quantitative measures, which things that can be measured with numbers. And let's start on the qualitative side. So these are factors that are very important for getting into graduate school. Number 1, a commitment to public service, to research, to work experience. Very, very important way to differentiate yourself. A lot of students apply to graduate school right out of college and they say, I don't have a lot of work experience yet. That's okay. Maybe you've done some research for a professor in college that's setting you up well. Maybe you had a leadership position in student government or within a fraternity or sorority or some other sort of organization which has allowed you to showcase your potential for leadership or public service. Graduate programs are always looking for diverse backgrounds and experiences. Speaking a foreign language, travel that you might have done. If you've come from a situation where there was hardship in your life and you were able to overcome it, these are great ways to differentiate yourself as a candidate. If you're looking to apply to another region or another country, that's another great way to differentiate yourself from other candidates who are applying to graduate school. Potential for career growth and leadership. So this is a huge one, not just because graduate schools are looking for people who they can use for marketing materials someday, but although that's very important too. So graduate programs are obviously looking for alumni who are going to set themselves up well in the future, people who are going to be able to give back to the school, whether it's time, money, energy, their profile, etc. But graduate programs are looking for people who already have proven leadership potential. Graduate school is not the place to start proving yourself as a leader or somebody who is going to have a very successful career. It's a finishing program for that. So it's really important that you can showcase that you have that leadership potential and that potential for a strong career path. And then compelling essays, recommendations, and interviews, all very important. Not all graduate programs allow you to have interviews, but certainly if interviews are optional or you're offered an interview, by all means you should take it even if it is optional. It's a great way for graduate programs to put a face with a name and for you to really get your personality into the process as well. Compelling essays are really important. You always want to be able to tell your story, and we'll talk more about that in an upcoming slide. And then, of course, your recommendations. You want to have people who know you well and can recommend you well, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit as well. On the quantitative side, obviously you want to have a strong academic record, and if you've already graduated from college, there's nothing you can do about that. Hopefully you've had a strong academic record. Hopefully you've been able to show that you can succeed in analytical courses. If you do not have a great GPA, many graduate programs require at least the 3.0. You may have to go back and do some college credits. You might have to go to a post-bac program or take some courses at another school after you graduate in order to show that you can do the work at the graduate level. or especially if you're trying to switch into a graduate program very different from what you studied undergraduate, these are very important things to keep in mind as well. But obviously, the better your GPA is, the more it's going to set you up for success, especially your GPA in coursework that is relevant to what you would be studying in graduate school. And then, of course, we already talked about this a bit, but your GRE scores are so important because they really give an apples-to-apples comparison. Whether you went to Harvard or University of Florida or Kansas or Texas or University of California undergraduate, you may have studied very different things than the other applicants. You may have different GPAs. The GRE levels the playing field. It's a test that everybody's taken that your scores will be able to compare apples to all those other candidates, and that's a great way for you to jump ahead of the competition and show that you are really capable of doing high-level graduate work. Number 2. You want to be very clear about your motivations for graduate school. So you're in an elevator, and this is the classic elevator pitch scenario, whether you're interested in graduate school or specific business school. But think about it this way. So you're getting in the lobby, you're with the dean of admissions for your graduate program, and this is your chance. You're going to have 30 to 40 seconds to get your elevator pitch across to this person and make it clear to them why you are a great candidate for this program. So first of all, you're going to have to get across why you have the credentials that match up well with other applicants. Then you have to get across what differentiates you, what makes you special compared to these other applicants. And you have to win them over with your personality and your passion. And so that's why it's so important that in your mind, at least, you've got this clear, concise message of why you want to go to a graduate school, why you want to study what you want to study, and then specifically why you want to go to XYZ graduate school. And that elevator pitch might vary slightly from program to program. You might be applying to several different programs that have several different focuses, and that's why it's so important that you can tailor your elevator pitch if necessary. But what I want you to be doing is, and this is a great place you can pause the video or think about this exercise after my presentation, but I want you to be thinking about why graduate school is right for you, what you bring to the table, what your past leads up to you being an excellent candidate for graduate school, why going to graduate school is going to set you up for future success in your career, in leadership opportunities, and what you're going to bring to the table in graduate school in terms of passion, research capabilities, etc. And those are all the things that are going to make you an excellent candidate for graduate school. So let's move on to tip 3 here. I want you guys to manage the process. So first of all, don't think that simply being qualified will qualify you for a program. So you might have 4.0 GPA from undergrad, you might have done your summer internships at a great investment bank, and you're ready to go to business school. And looking great on paper is great, and you might have great GRE or GMAT scores to go along with that, and that's all terrific. But just looking good on paper does not necessarily get you into a program. What you need to do is research programs and make a case for fit. So even if you are a strong investment banking background, you want to be able to showcase your personality and the things that make you dynamic and special and set you apart from other people applying to these programs. You also want to make a case for fit in terms of school. So if you're applying to business school programs that have great reputations but aren't necessarily strong in finance, you're not going to be a great fit for that program. I'll give you another example. If you're looking at an MFA in creative writing and you also had a strong undergrad GPA, you write very nice traditional fiction, you've won awards for it, and you look great on paper, but if you're applying to a top experimental creative writing program, you're not going to be a good fit for that program no matter how well you showcase yourself. So you really have to make a case for fit in terms of schools, and that's why it's important to familiarize yourself with all the programs that are out there. You always want to be networking with staff, alum, and students, and this is for your benefit in terms of choosing a program as much as you showcasing yourself to these folks. So I recommend very early in the process you try to travel to as many schools as possible. You attend open houses if possible. You find out if you can sit in on classes. You find out if you can talk to students, talk to alumni, and make sure that they're doing things now that you would like to be doing in the future. And it's so important that you're making these connections because you could end up choosing a school based on reputation and being miserable there. It's so much more important that you're choosing a program that matches your research interests, that matches your career goals, and that when you talk to the students, you feel comfortable there, and you don't have to put on a false persona in order to feel like you fit in there. You never want to just go by official requirements either. So if an application states that you just need to fill out a personal statement, submit your transcripts, and give your GRE scores in, it doesn't mean that that's what successful candidates are doing. They're very often going above and beyond. And they're scheduling additional interviews where possible. They're submitting their research that's showing why they're so special. They're really going above and beyond in the process. And those are the sorts of things that differentiate you. They might submit additional recommendations. They might travel to the school and spend time talking to the admissions office. So all of those things are going to set you apart from the pack. You always want to treat your application as a long-term project. So going to graduate school is not something where your application is due on September 15th, and on September 1st you say, I'll spend the next 2 weeks working on it, I'll finish it up the night before it's due, I'll get it in the mail postmarked before the deadline, and I'm going to get in. That's a terrible approach. And even if you've had success doing things like that undergrad, where finishing up a paper or studying for a midterm or final the night before, you certainly cannot do that with your graduate school applications, and you can't be successful doing that. This is a long-term process. At least a year ahead of time, you want to start thinking about the types of programs you're interested in. At least 6 months ahead of time, you want to make sure you've narrowed down programs, you've taken your GRE if possible, you've started to figure out your recommenders, and you really leave a lot of time to manage the process. And that's how you have a satisfying experience. Makes it easier for you to get scholarships if you start that far ahead of time. And it's also going to help you choose the right programs for you. So you never want to work on all elements of your application at the same time. You want to stagger it as well. So that's why it's really good to get your GRE scores out of the way early. It's going to help you make sure that you are picking programs that are right for you, and you might end up getting better scores and end up applying to more competitive programs. That's why you want to make sure that you've got extra recommenders lined up in case somebody that you're planning to have recommend you gets too busy or decides that they cannot do so. You want to make sure you've got your transcripts aligned. You want to make sure that you're giving a lot of thought to your elevator pitch, which is going to shape your personal statements and your interviews. And managing this process through and through is going to make you a very successful graduate school applicant. Number 4, let's make your experience work for you. So what does that mean? You always want to be highlighting accomplishments on your resume. So whether you're submitting a resume or a CV to the graduate programs that you're interested in, you want to make sure that you are conclusive and complete in what you're putting on your resume or CV. You want to be highlighting volunteer experience. You want to be highlighting research experience. You want to be building yourself up. This is not a time to be a shrinking violet or to be shy. In the admissions process, you don't want to be bragging, obviously, but you want to be showcasing all the wonderful things that you've done thus far in your life that have set you up for success in graduate school. You never want to diminish your current situation. So listen, graduate schools understand that the economy is very tough for people today. Unemployment rates are high. But it doesn't mean that this is the time to put yourself down. You've done a lot of tremendous things to get you to this point, and certainly you have your bachelor's degree or on your way to it, or you wouldn't be applying to graduate school. Hopefully you'll have nice test scores. Hopefully you'll be able to write strong essays, and you'll have nice recommendations. And all of those things should place you in a good position. You never want to do anything that puts yourself down. You want to draw on all of your experience. So that means your academic experience, your professional experience, your research experience, your volunteer experience, any hardship that you've overcome personally, all of those things, leadership experience, holistically are going to make you a very strong candidate for graduate school. You never want to forget your full non-work experience. So as I mentioned there, things like extracurriculars. You might have been on a sports team or been part of a musical organization or an arts club or politics or economics or whatever it is. Even if it isn't completely relevant to the graduate program you're interested in, something that shows commitment, that shows research capability, that shows analytical ability, those sorts of things are wonderful things to make sure you're including and making sure that your experience is working for you in the admissions process. You'll always want to make sure that your experience speaks for itself. So you never want to be in a situation where it's not clear why you have been successful in something in the past. You always want to be building yourself up and looking to tell things in a positive light and highlighting the many wonderful things about your past which are setting you up for success in graduate school. And you always want to connect your work to your story. So you may be transitioning from one field to another in order to go to graduate school. You may have limited academic experience in a subject, and now is the time where you've decided that you have the passion and you really want to delve in and take it to the next level and study that something at the master's or graduate level. But you want to be able to tell a coherent story. So connect the work that you've been doing, make it clear why you've made the choices that you've made and how it's taken you to the point where there's no better choice in your life now than to go to graduate school and set you up for your future. Tip 5, okay, we want you to develop your story. So you have to flesh it out. So don't make assumptions about how you're viewed. So just because you went to X school and have Y GPA and have Z GRE scores, and that all may be wonderful, but don't make assumptions about because of that you are viewed as an exceptional candidate. Graduate programs want people who can do the work, who they're not going to take a risk on, but they also don't want people who are cocky or who are obnoxious or who cannot play as a team with other people in a department. Nobody's going to want to advise those people. Nobody's going to want to vouch for them for their future. So whether positively or negatively, you don't want to make assumptions about how you're viewed. You want to make it clear as to who you are, what your character is like, what your work potential is like, and that is how you're going to develop your story. You always want to identify your points of similarity and of difference. So what that means is, first of all, you need to be able to show that you've got what it takes to do the work in graduate school. And you do that through your GRE scores, you do that through your previous work experience, you do that through your GPA, through any coursework that you've taken that's relevant. Hopefully you've had good scores in it, through your personal statements. All of those things are making you a strong candidate. But above and beyond that, lots of strong candidates do not get into graduate school. So then you need to show your points of difference and show what makes you special. And that might be leadership experience, volunteer experience, research that you've done that separates you from the pack. Maybe you have some teaching experience. Any of those sorts of things, you need to be as strong a candidate as everyone else, and then you need to figure out what makes you special and differentiates you from everybody else. You always want to tell people your story. So, this is not like a magic show where you're looking to save your best trick for last. You want to make sure that your story is clear to folks very early in the process, because you might not get to the next round of the admissions process if that's the case. You're not looking to pull out your best tricks at the end. You're looking to tell your full and complete story of how special you are and what makes you a great candidate through every step of the process, and tell it in a lot of different ways. You can tell it through your resume or your CV. You can tell it through your test scores. You can have recommenders add another angle to that by including it in their recommendations. You're going to include it in your personal statement and wherever possible in your essays as well. You never want to keep your story to yourself. Doing so is going to put you in jeopardy of getting to the next round in the process. You always want to build your story into all parts of your application, and it's just like a great novelist does. You hear parts of a story through different characters' voices or through different times in the narration, and it really comes together for you as a reader. Same sort of thing through the application process. If that passion is coming through from your personal statement, if it's evident in the high-level grades that you've received in your coursework, if it's evident in that you took the GRE a second time to get an even higher score and differentiate yourself from the pack, building that story through and through is going to make you a super strong candidate. And you never want to hang back on any key points in your application. You're doing so at your own peril, and you're not fully developing your story. All right, let's move on to tip 6, and helping your recommenders help you. And this is such an important part of the process, because a lot of people think, I'll just pick recommenders who are very prestigious. You might know the conductor of the New York Philharmonic, might be a friend of your family, or you might know a famous investor out in UK who's a family friend. Doesn't mean that somebody like that is going to be a great recommender just because they've got a famous name or they're the leader in their field and that's the field you want to go into. What you're looking for is to seek recommendations from people that you trust and that you know well, and that you have strong working relationships with. So you're looking for professors who you've worked with day in and day out and may have worked in their research lab or worked in their office. You're looking for bosses that you've had or coworkers that you work very closely with for several months or years at a time, and who can really justify and talk through the fact that you stay in the office late, you come in the office early, you do everything that you can to make sure that projects are completed on time and are excellent and are part of a great team. These are the people that you want recommending you, not somebody who has great credentials but barely knows you and can't speak to your personal work ethic and passion. Don't ever assume that your recommenders know what to say. So even if they know you really, really well and they've worked with you day in and day out, they may highlight things about you which are not necessarily in line with the personal brand that you're trying to build for yourself or throughout the application process. So what I always recommend to students, and this is what I did when I went to graduate school as well, is I gave one-pagers highlighting what I believed was most important about my academic background, my work experience, all the things that had set me up for success. And anybody who believes in you and is going to write you a strong recommendation is going to want that information so that they can shape your story the correct way. And it doesn't mean that you're looking to say anything that is not true here. You want to be highlighting your truths, but you want to make sure that they're not neglecting anything or forgetting about any aspect of you that does make you special and makes you stand out. So you want to make sure you're giving that guidance to your recommenders, and you're doing it with plenty of time. This is not something you want to give them and say, by the way, today's Tuesday, can I have this back by Friday? You want to optimally give 2 to 3 months for recommenders to have all the time that they need to write your recommendation. Keep in mind that recommenders are very busy people, whether they're professors or your peers at work or whoever they may be. And you want to leave them plenty of time to do this. And in addition to this, you never want to take recommendations from a family member. Unless you've been working in a family business and that's who your boss is, it doesn't really jive well for you, and it doesn't usually work well for you to pick somebody who is that close to you personally. Always want to be managing deadlines, and this is not just true for recommendations, it's true throughout the graduate school admissions process. Getting things in late or having incomplete applications is going to be the end of you. There are just too many strong applicants and too much competition, and if you can't hit your deadlines and manage this process well, you're not going to get into your top graduate choices. So don't think that things will just arrive on time, especially with recommenders. Just giving them a stamped envelope and saying, can you mail us in a month, doesn't mean that it's going to happen. You have to stay on top of every aspect of the process, and the same is true of recommenders. Let's move on to tip 7. So your academic potential is measurable. We talked about your GPA. If you're still an undergrad, you have the ability to improve your GPA, although maybe only incrementally at this point in your career or in your studies. But one thing that you can change a lot in a short period of time is your GRE score. And I'm testament. I hear from hundreds of students a week who tell us how much their GRE scores improved and how they get into programs that they never thought possible. And that's one of the great things about the GRE is your GPA is fixed. Your work experience, your research experience, hopefully you've lined those up well, but those take time to do so. And your GRE is something in 2 to 3 months you can make incremental gains that will catapult you above the competition. These scores may not mean a lot to you, so this is based on the new 170 scoring scale. A 155 math is above average. A 162 verbal is considerably above average, and this varies so widely from program to program, and even different programs within the same university, that you really want to be looking closely at what the median scores are for the programs that you are interested in. But the bottom line is that the GRE is something you can change quickly. The scores are good for 5 years from the day you test, so what you want to be doing with the GRE is setting aside enough time to study, and we recommend 2 to 3 months of study time. And then finally, test prep, invest in your degree. And if you're already in one of our courses, we congratulate you for this. But if you think about how expensive graduate school is, and even if you go to a PhD program and you get a free ride, you're still paying for the cost of housing and living expenses, and not all of that will be offset by a stipend. But it's a great investment that you're making, and make sure you take advantage of it. So, just taking a course with us is not enough. It doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get the score you want. We have wonderful instruction and wonderful strategies and the most practice of anybody out there for the GRE, but you have to put in your time and effort, and that's how you're going to succeed. And think about the light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to end up with a satisfying career path, whether it's in academia or in research or in a nonprofit or for a corporation, and you're also going to make yourself so much more marketable employable and employable. So those with a master's degree have a 3.4% unemployment rate right now. It's below 2% for professional degrees, compared with a national average of 9%. So what you're doing with your GRE studies and with your graduate school applications in general is investing in yourself, and congratulations for doing that. What I'd like to talk about now is some aspects of our courses, which are going to set you up for great success in graduate school. So first of all, let's talk about our expert instructors. And so I've got 4 of our wonderful instructors here. I selected these 4 instructors, Elena, Adi, Debbie, and Jean, because they're featured in the videos of all of our courses. So no matter which course you took with us, these 4 wonderful dynamic instructors are featured and will talk you through your lessons and give you great strategies. And these are in addition to any other instructors that you may get to interact with if you take a live course with us. But these are brilliant folks. I love working with them, and I love hearing their success stories and the stories from the students who loved learning from them. So what else do you need to prep successfully? You need great practice materials. And we've gone out of our way. We've spent hundreds of hours and done so much research to make sure that we have the best practice materials on the market. And those include these 3 great books, the math workbook and the verbal workbook, which you'll be using along with your lessons, and the Premier book, which you will be using for at-home study. And in addition to that, we have a whole suite of online resources, because you're actually going to take the GRE on a computer, so you should be doing the vast majority of your practice on a computer. Our course contains over 180 hours of practice materials, and it doesn't mean that you need to do all 180 hours. We'll talk a little bit momentarily about our SMART reports, which lets you make the most of your study time so you don't have to study harder, but you're studying smarter. But in addition, we have the largest GRE content library anywhere, with over 5,000 practice items in it, all with explanations, and over 20 hours of expert instruction from a dynamic, wonderful teacher. And 7 full-length computer adaptive tests. So it's so important that you're taking your full-length practice tests. These tests are incredibly realistic. We've had psychometric experts build our algorithm and build the test interface for this. And it is just like the experience you're going to have when you take the GRE, and it will set you up wonderfully. If you practice with these tests and you're learning in between and you're reviewing your strategies and the wrong answer choices, you're going to do really well on the GRE. As I mentioned with our adaptive learning technology, so we have something called SMART reports, and what it does is every time you take a practice test with us, it analyzes your performance based on the previous test you took and this latest test that you've taken, and it gives you your strengths. It lets you know what you're doing best at and where you have incremental gains there. And it also lets you know what your biggest opportunity areas are. So you're not studying forever and not being sure if what you're doing is going to help you. You're studying targeted things that are helping you make small incremental gains, which are going to lead to big percentage point increases that are going to help you catapult over other test takers. In terms of what works for you, we offer 4 types of class delivery medium. You can take an on-demand class, which is on your computer. You can access it 24/7. It's all recorded information and thousands of practice problems and 7 full-length tests. If you like to have a live instructor, but you want to sit at home and be able to do it anywhere you have an internet connection, you'll want our Classroom Anywhere course. If you still like to go to a brick and mortar building and learn just as you probably did in college, you'll be interested in Classroom Onsite. And if you want our most customized options, you're going to want to take a one-on-one private tutoring course with us. In terms of confidence, first of all, more people get into graduate school with a GRE course from Kaplan than with any other course out there. And we literally have hundreds of thousands of students each year who use our products, and the success rate is incredibly high. More than 95% of people who pass through our courses tell their friends that they would recommend it. So it's a testament to the team that has built this product, and it's a testament to the students that we're attracting who are showing great results. So you should definitely have confidence in that. And then, in addition to that, we offer the most comprehensive guarantee in the industry. So basically, the bottom line is that if you don't improve your score, you can either take another course with us. If you're not ready to take the GRE yet, when you finish our course, you can continue to study. Or if your score does not go up and you're not satisfied with our course, you can get your money back. So we have that much confidence in our program, and we wouldn't be successful as a company if student scores were not improving and student outcomes were not improving. So that's why we believe so strongly in our product, and that's why we can offer this higher score guarantee. And then finally, here are some great additional free resources for you. So no matter how you decide to study, what we recommend is you should certainly follow us on Twitter and Facebook. It's a great way to interact with our great instructors. Great way to be part of our community of fellow people who are studying for the GRE and planning to go to graduate school, and you can have great conversations with them and learn from them. At least 3 days a week, we update our blog with great entries on the GRE and graduate school admissions and how to get ahead of the financial aid process. So you can go to blog.kaplangradprep.com and get some great updates there. We have a test info center, kaptest.com/newgre. Lots of great information there that will help you prepare for test day. If you're interested in studying on our own, you can go to that Amazon link and buy our Premier book for a nice discount there. And there's lots of good prep there if you're motivated to study on your own. We have a wonderful financial aid hub, which gives you great advice on scholarships and fellowships and the financial aid process, and that's available to you from our website. So you can click on that link and access that. You also want to make sure you're following the test maker. So ETS has lots of great free resources. It's where you're also going to sign up for the GRE and pay your registration fee. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable with what the test maker has out there as well. If you're interested in how the new scoring scale works, you can click on that PDF or put that into your browser and you'll be able to look at the new scoring information.